Morning, Andrea. I see you watching. Appreciate you being here. I am on new paper today. I've never used this paper before, so it might be a learning curve for me because of this. It feels a lot like Arches paper, but this is Meaden's watercolor paper. This is I believe, a 9 by 12. Yeah, well, it says 12 by 9. There's 20 sheets in this. We're going to give it a try today and see how we like it. Every once in a while, I like to try something a little new to see if I'd like it enough to recommend to all of you and to my other seated watercolor classes. Spring is in full bloom here. My allergies are too, so I get real hoarse, and I apologize for that. And I apologize for being a little bit late today too. We've got my mother-in-law who's been having she had COVID, but we also found out when she was in the hospital that she has some diverticulitis and a potential bleed, and not a lot can be done about either of them because of the COVID. So then we also found out she has AFib. So we were in the emergency room all day yesterday, trying to get some answers for that, and we are starting new meds and not really sure where that's going to lead her as far as meds. She has a sensitivity to medications. So I'm on today, but it's been a whirlwind. Okay, I've pre-wet my ceiling. I'm putting just some purple on this bottom edge here. And I'm just kind of adding a little bit of, I'm going to pull up some in some areas. And I'm going to make, let's see, I've got some, should have some, I'm not sure where it's at. What is this? Yeah, Payne's Gray. Payne's Gray is what I was looking for. Good morning, Sherry. Hope everybody's doing good. I used carbon paper today to trace on because I was running so late, and I just needed to get this up here on my pad to paint for you guys. I'm using Payne's Gray right here on the window. I'm going to use some up here on this window. And we'll be using quite a bit of this Payne's Gray. Use some down here in the eaves of our church here. Use some there. And I'm going to use some here. I might have to go down to a smaller brush for these windows. Let's try this a little bit smaller. I did put the traceable up in our group. So we've got some wonky windows here. It doesn't matter if they're perfect because this is an old rugged church. I'm going to come back with this brush and I'm going to kind of swipe a little bit. All right, I'm going to take now and grab some of my purple again. And I'm going to take a little bit of this purple. Y'all can't really see my mixing tray. And a little bit of my Payne's Gray and mix them together. And then we're going to kind of go right down along this ridge here. This is a white church, so we're adding our shadows where we need them to be. Once we add our shadows, then we'll be able to see the form start to kind of take shape. You're going to hear a lot of tractors and such. We have large fields all the way around us, and it's springtime, so all the wonderfulness is happening around here in the spring. And then we've got an eave right here. We're going to do the same to that. Same thing to that right here. And then down here. I'm just rinsing my brush and keeping a soft line as much as I can. I'm going to add a little shadow right over here. I just picked up some Payne's Gray. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to pick up a detail brush now. Make sure that I don't have any water on my ferrule. And I'm just going to pull I haven't even had any real coffee this morning, so I'm jittery if I have it and I'm jittery if I don't. I'm not going all the way down on some of these lines because I want to have some foliage here, and so that will help me. I'll go a little darker here. and then come back and kind of straighten a little bit of this line out because I got a little wonky. I'm going to put a little frame around my window there. I like that a little bit better. Thank you. Appreciate it. Go back over here and didn't have to touch all the corners. Again, this is really just making sure. Try not to, on an old rugged building, try not to feel like you have to complete your lines. You don't want it to look like it's been outlined. Sketchy is better than all one solid line. Again, take my small brush. I'm going to work on my windows here a little bit. And I'm going to pull. And I just pulled in some lines around the windows to kind of give them some dimension and make them look like they're sitting back a little bit. All right, we're going to work up here on our temple. I'm going to take actually and use my purple mixture with my Payne's Gray. And I'm going to come up here. And I started with it on my brush, and then I went back in and rinsed my brush and just pulled water down. And then I'm going to come here and do the same. I still have paint on my brush. And then we'll come down here. There's going to be a shadow on this side of the steeple too, but it's going to be much lighter. And I'm just using more of the purple on this side. So your shadows, when you have an angle like that, they need to differ a little bit, because the sun's going to hit those areas a little differently. All right, so I'm going to take, I have a couple of little arched areas here. And I'm going to take and pull those lines in. I'm going to do the same over here. And I'm not going to go, feel like I have to go all the way across. I'm just kind of sketching those lines in on this side. And then I'm going to take my Payne's Gray and just on this one side here. Just on this one side, and we'll start up at the top of the arch. I'm going to come down with my Payne's Gray. And that helps give that a little dimension. I'm just going to stick my paintbrush in my paint water. And then I'm going to come down here, and it should be enough color in my brush to unwhite this paper. And I'm going to use this same pigment right here. Okay. I made this very wonky when I was painting. I started on this sketch last night, and it's been a long day in the emergency room, so I was doing my best. Now, I've drawn in right here a little bit of a pond. So I'm going to see if I can't initiate this. I'm going to just put some water in this area right here. And we're going to start with a very light gray. And this goes all the way off here. Gets narrow right here. So I'm just going to take some of my Payne's Gray, and I'm going to water that down considerably, and I'm just going to tap in here. And I'm just going to leave highlights. And this will dry and be fine. cool. We have a lot of these churches that look like this around here still. Matter of fact, the church that my husband and I are members of is I think the oldest church in North Carolina. It actually burned to the ground. It's probably been about 20 years ago now, if that long. I don't even know if it's been that long. And they had to rebuild it, but they built it just like it was. I'm just going to soften this line. It's a little hard. All right, so I'm going to take and mix in some of my yellow ochre now. I'm just going to put some on my tray. It's kind of a very neutral yellow. Very warm. Okay. I'm going to take my number 6 brush here. And I'm going to just go over my foliage. Just right over the ground here. I'm going to avoid my pond. I'm going to do the top half first. I'm just going to water down some of this yellow because I don't want it to be bright. I'm just going to pull it in. I'm going to avoid this area right in front of the church. Come over this way. I'm going to take some of my yellow ochre. I'm going to kind of push some up in some areas, being very kind of loose with that. And just leaving it to dry. I'm going to take some of my darker red, like a crimson. And I'm probably going to add just a touch of my brown to that. It'll warm it up some. And also take down some of that brightness. I'm just going to go ahead and pre-mix some of that. And then I'm going to add some other little. Now up above, right in this area where I'm pushing, is dry. It doesn't have any water. But down here at the bottom it does. And if you can see this right through here, I'm letting that brush have like a skippy dry brush appearance. And push some this way where we weren't before. And I'm going to just tap a little bit down here. Kind of going a little bit jagged there. That's going to leave some of that yellow looking more. Okay, we're going to leave that. I'm going to add some of this a little bit down in this area. It should be still wet. It's a little bit much paint on my brush, so it's not as wet as I thought it would be. Just adding some touches of this color. Just using some water here, softening that off. And right up around here, I'm going to add a little bit of jagged foliage. And just letting that area kind of be loose. Tapping in a little darker color here and there. All right, I'm going to, right in here, I'm going to tap with my brush and add some distant trees. Just using the side of my brush. It's loaded with my red paint here. Some are bigger than others. Leaving a few gaps. I'm just leaving it like that. I'm going to take a little bit of, let me find some blue here. I'll do some cobalt. I'm going to mix it into my brown and purple mixture. I'm sorry, my brown and red mixture. I've taken some cobalt blue. I'm mixing it in with my brown and red. I'm going to kind of need more water, I think. I'm going to kind of add it in and around right here. I'm going to pull it up with just a damp brush. And so this negative painting helps me to fill in where the church walls are. And tap down more at the bottom. Got a little bit of it in my church, but that's okay. All right, this is a little wet right here, so I'm going to pull some up. Okay, I'm going to take some of this brown and red mixture. I'm going to come right across my line here. Just sketchy, a sketchy type line. And then I'm going to just take my water right behind it. I got a really wet brush. And softening that line. I'm just making some darker areas, and then I'm kind of skipping around so that the yellow that I put down, which is very faint now, as I'm still seeing some of that into my grasses. Okay, let's see. Let's come back down to the bottom down here. Start adding in some of our yellows here. We're going to meet up with our yellow up at the top. I haven't pre-wet this bottom area. It's going to be okay. I'm just going to pre-wet all of this really well. This paper, it's good. It's not, so far, it's not quite arch. But I think it's doing a good job. And this is a block. It's holding up to all this water really well. Arch paper is probably a little bit smoother by just such a minuscule amount. Go back in with some of the yellows here and there. Okay, I'm going to take some of this brownish red, and I'm going to kind of start pulling up just some really loose areas here. Oh, this is going to be real dark. And then I'm just going to pull in some of this red. Over this area, I'm going to do the same. And pull up some of this red here. And we'll let all this dry. This corner, I'm going to darken it. Putting some of that brown red down at the very base of these. It's still quite wet. Pulling up. It's still quite wet. I'm going to pull out some of this. And actually, I can take my squirt gun, my water, and spray and just soften those edges up a little bit. Help it run. It's very wet. I'm just going to pull up with my paper towel where I want to. Okay. We're going to go back now to our number 2 brush. I'm going to pull in some of my sepia, which is a dark brown color. Hi, Sharon. Hi, Sherry. Oh, you're welcome. I hope it helps, Andrea. That's why I feel like the Lord led me to do this. It is. I can't wait to see it when you do it, Andrea. All right, I'm going to actually spray my water up here at the top. And then I'm going to start putting in some of these. Let's see here. I'm going to pull in some of my orange. Ready. I'm going to mix some orange with red and make orangey red color. And while this is wet, I'm just going to scooch around. I'm leaving some white space. I want to leave some white space because I have these tree trunks coming up through here. I want some of that to show. It's not as wet down here, so and we're going to try to go a little bit darker on this end. And we're just going all the way up to that top, leaving some of that spot. Okay? Letting our brush kind of go dry and leaving some soft texture there on our edge. See how I'm holding my brush? I really want that paint to kind of run dry. Okay. flattening out my brush, pulling up. And I'm going to put in lots and lots and lots of tree trunks here. I want this to be pretty dark. I want to go crossways and over to the side some and leaving some white space. We're really just using a lot of, and all of this down here, I just want to be dark. Pulling up some of the lighter browns if I need it. And I haven't really drawn these in. I'm really just, I've made some indications by adding lines there, but I'm trying to be loose here. All right, we're just going to leave that because it's starting to just be a little bit messy. I'm going to take some water and soften this area here a little bit. Hope y'all can see that. All right, we're going to take our smaller brush, add some little bit of water to it, pick up some paint. We're going to kind of come up here. Oops, we got some water on our ferrule. We do not want that. And we're just going to start filling in some areas up here. Still quite wet up here. We're just going to let that go and be. See what happens with that. Hey Cindy, how are you? And Brenda, welcome. All right, I'm going to put my finger on my paper and let it guide me up and down. Okay. I want to try to get, as it trails up to the top, I want to try to get it a little bit thinner than where it starts at the trunk of the tree. you need to use a smaller brush, you can. We're just adding some stems here. This is all still quite wet right now. And I'm just going to take my largest brush. Here it is. And I'm just going to, I know it makes you nervous to do that, but adding that little bit of color from the water and loosening up some of these lines is going to just help make all of this look looser and softer. So don't be scared. Take the chance. You can always redraw it and go back and do this again. It's just supplies. I did not mean to do that, but that's okay. Well, I meant that for that to be a lot lighter. But my hand fell, and it happens. I'm just going to pull some of that up. Okay. Much better. All right. I actually am going to take some of my cobalt blue. We used a little bit mixed in our red that we were using. We used a little bit of that earlier. And just water, a whole lot watery consistency. I'm going to kind of come up. There's going to be a reflection from the sky here on this ground. So I'm just going to add some of this, and it's going to look a little odd. I know. I'm like, you're thinking blue in the ground? Just trust me. Trust the process. Have fun. Take the chance that you've never taken before, and you will find that you're going to improve some in your journey here in watercolor. All right. I'm going to take my damp brush and just go right along that top edge. And then I'm going to take and get a little bit more and come right down in here. That was just water I did there. I tapped it off with a damp brush. All right, I'm going to dry this really well because there's some really wet areas here. Well, that's good. Sometimes it takes a little brevity to do watercolor and really trust the process. Okay, I'm going to take, at this point I would go and get fresh water, but for the sake of the video and me not having to get up and run around and do that, because my water is all the way on the other side of my studio, I'm just going to take and re-wet this. I know you're thinking, you just dried it, why are you re-wetting it? Because I don't really want all of that paint to move. I want it to stay put. The color that you see laying down right now is coming from the water that I'm using. But these other colors are dry. And I'm just going to wet. I'm not going to wet all the way up. I'm just going to wet from this bottom area up around my church. Get around your steeple really well. Okay, I'm going to take some of my blue. And just adding some of this blue, touching into some of these areas. It will mix with some of the color that's on here. And I'm just using water everywhere else. Just water. And so if this moves, it'll move on its own. We're going to do the same over here to the other side. I'm going to pre-wet right here. And I'm going to pre-wet in here. And up and around the edges of my trees. And my church. Try not to get into the church. And adding this blue in and around here, even where you've already painted, it just does something to it. Because it's blending in with these other colors we have, and it really is quite beautiful. It's amazing what happens when we let our colors blend optically on our paper. I'm going to go into these first few sections right here, but back in this area it's already been wet, so I'm not worried about it as much. Okay. I'm going to re-dry this. What are y'all thinking so far? You think you can do this? I've got some work that I need to do on my steeple. Okay. I'm going to take, this is a number 4 brush. I'm going to go into my reds and my deeper color reds. I've got to re-wet them because they've dried. Come back over here and I'm leaving some space. I'm leaving a little bit of space in between these two sections here. I'm just taking some water and making some jagged lines with the paint as they loosen up. Come back and I'm just going to narrow it down some here when I come this direction. Come back and really just wet this area. Might need a bigger brush. Let's get our number 6 here to do this. Let's see. And go back and redo some of this because it's lightened up considerably, hasn't it? It's muted itself. All of these areas down here, when they dry, they become lighter. And we've learned that from previous. You just really have to take the risks, Sherry. As beginners, we really want to hold our brush tight. We really want to say, just tell me what to paint and where. And there's different styles of watercolor, and this one has some realism, but it also has some impressionism in it. All the foliage is very more impressionistic, whereas the church has got some more realism in it, and because it's more focused and direct. But all this foliage is very loose and can be very intimidating to some people. It really depends on you and what, if you're somebody who's an anxious person and find that you like to have control over life in general, then you're going to want to be a realistic painter probably. But it really helps to learn both styles. It really does. I'm going to take some of this paint and move it this away some and create just a really rigid, ragged edge. So the paint that I have here is the shadow to the grass above it, but it's also going to be the negative part of this grass here that's coming in front of it. I hope that makes sense. You'll see what I'm referring to in a minute. We're going to let this dry some. I'm just going to take a damp brush here and redirect some of this over here. And I just got a really soft Okay, I'm going to take my detail brush here. I'm going to take my brown, my red and brown mixture. I don't want it to be watery. I want it to be pretty thick because I want control over what I'm getting ready to do. So I have probably about a 50-50 mixture of paint and water. Maybe even maybe even a little bit less water, so 60-40. So 60% paint to 40% water, because I really want a thicker paint. But it has to move. It has to be able to move for me. So I don't want it so thick that it's not going to move. All right, I'm going to take and I'm going to pull some lines. Actually, I'm going to get a liner brush to do this. I think it would work better. Or a rigger. I just got to find what I did with them. Here we go. So your riggers are going to have a longer point to them. I'm going to roll that into my paint, making sure I've got a really good handle on that. Need some more water on my brush. When you start seeing it skip, you probably need a little extra water on your brush. Okay. Some of these are going to kind of be up next to our building. They're becoming a little red. Let me add some more brown here. There you go. That's right. Positive affirmations, right? Just going to come back over this way under the tree here. Oops, sorry about that, guys. Go in several directions there. All right, I'm going to take my detail brush here, pick up some of this reddish brown, and I'm just going to kind of tap in very loosely. I'm just going to kind of go back and forth. I'm just being loose. I'm not, you see, I'm just kind of skipping along. I'm not really trying to add. Perfect flowers or anything like that. I don't want that. These are just in silhouette and they don't need to be perfect. I'm going to come over here and add a couple little extra limbs on these smaller trees that are kind of coming up here. You don't need a ton of colors in your box to make a pretty painting. Okay. So this is trying to dry a little bit. I'm going to take a damp brush and pull this. Just dampen it a little bit here. I'm going to take some of my reds. Stay really dark in your corners. I'm take and add a little bit of extra darkness to some of this area so it shows separation of some of these grasses. Adding just a little bit, mostly water on my brush here. I'm leaving some yellow on both sides. So yellow here and yellow here along the edge of my pond. Down in this area, I'm going to get a little darker in some spots. On your edges and your corners, you want to stay a little bit darker. As you pull towards the center, most of the time you're a little bit lighter. That's not a golden rule, but it's the case most of the time in a landscape. See how this hard line developed here? So we're going to see if we can't warm that out a little bit. Just rubbing, scrubbing. And it's probably going to stay a hard line, but we will have to deal with that. Scrubbing away some of the tree on the brown too. Brown on the tree. All right. We'll be all right. All right, let's work on our pond a little bit. I'm going to pull in just a smidge of this red into our pond over here. Because we should have a reflection, right? There should be reflections into water. And we're still going to leave some of that blue. Take some of our Payne's gray. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and re-wet this whole thing. Take my small brush and get my Payne's gray. And then could touch up against this line. We're just going on that one side here. Okay, we're going to pull. I don't want to lose some of my blue, the lighter color over on this side, so I'm going to lift up. I'm just pulling in. Using my small detail brush there. Then just a damp brush to brush over those hard lines. Soften them off. And then I'm kind of using my browns and my Payne's gray here. Some areas I want my edge to be a lot crisper, and sometimes I want it to be a lot softer. So use your judgment there. Like right in here. Hopefully y'all can see that. I kind of want this edge to be a little bit softer. So I'm going to take and use just water now and pull that. And then I'm going to take, and on this side, kind of going around these lines very loosely. And then I'm going to lift with water. I'm going to put a fallen log. Let's see here. Okay. Let's dry it. I've got a hard edge right here. Just trying to soften that off a little bit. Use some of these orangey reds through here now. I'm pushing my brush here, pushing it. Going back to my orangey reds. Try not to go all the way up to this area here that we created. We want to kind of leave some of that. I just have water on my brush right this minute. It's damp. And I'm pushing. I still have this paint is all still wet. And you can stop at any point here, guys, because it's your painting and you can stop at any point. I think I kind of want this to be a little bit more purpley on right here, but we'll just go with that. Add some brown in it so it's not overly purple. Purples make great shadows, especially for like shadows from a tree, this tree here on our church. So you just want it to be kind of floppy and see how much the blue softened on our church, around our church. And it really made a pretty background, I think. All right, let's work on our church a little bit. We've done what we're going to do for our foreground and our background. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you guys. Love you guys so much. Let's just dry all this so that I don't put my arm in it, which I am really, really good for. Put a little bit on this side. So fun. You'll have fun with this one, guys. I want y'all to have fun with it. And I really, really want to see y'all's work. Don't be afraid of water and paint and sloshing it around. And sometimes we've got to give ourselves a break and come back to it and let other people look at it. And this is a safe place. I want y'all to feel like this group is a safe zone. Come back if you're having a problem. Don't feel like all you have to do is post it. Post it and say, I'm having an issue with this. Can you help me with it? And we can certainly address that. That's what this group is for. It's for you to learn how to watercolor and help you to problem solve on your own. So that you can be a better painter than I am. Whew. All right, we'll let that cool down a little bit. Let it cool down before you begin much more. Okay? I'm going to pull this log over a little bit. It looks a little bit all right, hey. All right, I'm going to clean off my palette some here. How long we been on here, guys? What time is it? 12:30. We've been on an hour and a half. I probably could have saved that, but anyways. We're just going to start over again with our color. All right, I'm going to take some of this purple and some of this Payne's gray. And I'm going to start again with my shadows here. And y'all know me, I like to really emphasize shadows. Doesn't have to be perfect. If you feel like it's dark, you can lift some up, spread it back out again. All right. So blues and purples, right? Blues and purples. And obviously the front of the church is going to be the shadow side. I'm going to really wet down my shadow colors. I'm going to have a shadow up underneath the eave of this side of the church as well. So we're going to just pull and go straight across. just with Payne's Gray, I went around again the edge or the eaves of that church. It really needs to show some darkness there. I've got a hard spot right here. All right. I'm going to take my liner brush and I'm going to kind of sketchy lines, nothing just sketchy. Let's see. Not sure. This has already been wet. Ugh. Messed up my watercolor painting. Darn it. Made a mess. Made a mess. Okay. Such is life. Right up here again, I'm going to add a really dark shadow on these. Right up under the eaves of our I'm going to take and add a little bit right here. And a little right there. And this will lighten up some, but we're going to go back underneath our bell tower here, reestablish the shadow here on the bell tower. Then I'm going to take and add some shadow here. Just water, I'm going to lift some of that up. Okay. I messed this area up. I'm not happy with that, but it is what it is. That's generally what I'll do is something silly like that. I shouldn't have used this eraser. It's not a gum eraser. That was right here, and I messed up my paper. This is still wet, so I need to be careful. But I can take some white gouache. Let's see if I've got some on hand. We're supposed to have 80 degrees this weekend, y'all. Can you believe that? I don't know if I'll see the outdoors or not. I'm just taking some of my, this is Holbein. You want to take a note of that. G796 Holbein Artist Gouache Permanent White. This tube will last me forever. Have too much water down there. Let me get some water up. And when this dries, I can go back over it again. Because sometimes after one pass, it's not enough. And I'll have to go back over and touch this up with some blue in a little bit. I'm going to come down and this is just gouache. You can use the Holbein bleed proof white as well. And I think if you have any errors in your window, I actually like the windows looking wonky. So I don't worry about those. I'm going to straighten up my door a little bit here. I've got a very raggedy looking door. This little brush dries out really quick. Woo! All right, I need to stop because I keep making mistakes. But we'll put this right here. And I've got a little area right here under the eave. Just taking a hard look. All right, guys, I think I'm going to call it done. I hope that y'all enjoyed it. I might add a little bit of purple. That's still pretty wet. The gouache is still pretty wet, so it wants to move and shift. And when you can put your cross on the top of the steeple, you can use a paintbrush, but you can also use a very thin. Make sure that it's a waterproof pen, and make sure that it's an archival pen. I'll show you the ones I use in just a minute. But Micron makes a decent pen. I have found that they're not totally waterproof. I've messed up several paintings using them, and the ones that I'm using now, I love more than anything. A lot of people swear by Micron, but they've messed me up several times. Now, I could go back here and darken this, and I probably will. Just at the bottom. This gouache takes a little bit longer to dry. Thank you. Oh, I got UPS. Mr. UPS is coming up today. He's a favorite of mine. I'm going to try to darken this area down here at the bottom. I just have to mix a little bit of that paint. All right, let's see if we can darken some of this. All right, I'm going to take a damp brush only up here at the top. I don't know why it's still so bright. I must not have the right color. I'm going to throw a little bit of green in. Ooh, that grabbed way too much green. Grabbed way, way, way too much. Some of these colors are strong. That's a pretty color right there. Can you hear me now? I was telling Mary that I use White Knights, St. Petersburg White Knights. I've used them for years. And I love them just as much, if not more, than my Daniel Smith colors. I have a lot of both, but also Holbein and some Schminke. I have some a little bit of Winsor Newton. Okay. Any other questions? Thanks, guys. I really appreciate y'all. Say a prayer for my mother-in-law. She's having a hard go of it. She's 87 years old. And we were in the hospital from Friday to Monday. And back again on yesterday. We were in the emergency room all day for her atrial fib. You're welcome, Tanya. You're welcome, Mary. There's a lot of really good paints out there. These are on the more expensive side to use. Some of their paints are less expensive than others, but I think for this set I paid, I know it was over $100, but I hate to quote y'all a complete amount. I can't remember. Absolutely, the gouache is Holbein Artist Gouache G796. And I don't think I paid but $20-some for this tube. And this is a lot of gouache. This is a whole lot of gouache. Most of the time they come in a watercolor size tube, which is about like this. That's a Daniel Smith, and this is the gouache. So I paid just as much for that tube as I did for this tube. But I'm not sure if all their colors are as inexpensive as that was, but it works very well. I enjoy using this gouache instead of this. This is good, but I find that it gets very hard and crumbly. Anytime water gets into it, it starts getting crumbly like that and gross. And I never have gotten through a whole jar. You can spritz a little water in there and stir it around, but when you come back to it, it's going to be just like it again. So, this was fun. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you and love you. Good. I'm glad you got that. Y'all take care. God bless.